The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead like angry wasps as Lily pushed her cleaning cart down the empty hallway. It was past midnight and the 40-story corporate building felt like a ghost town. Her rubber-soled shoes squeaked against the polished marble floor, the only sound breaking the eerie silence that seemed to press against her eardrums. She had been working these night shifts for 3 years now, and still the emptiness made her skin crawl. Something was different tonight, though. As she approached the executive floor, a chill ran down her spine that had nothing to do with the building's aggressive air conditioning. The hair on her arms stood up, and she couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching her. She paused, looking over her shoulder at the dark hallway behind her, but saw nothing except her own shadow stretching long and distorted under the harsh lights. Lily Chin, though she went by Lily Williams on her work badge, was 26 years old and had perfected the art of being invisible. At 5 feet 4 inches, with her hair always pulled back in a simple ponytail and wearing the standard gray cleaning uniform, she blended into the background like wallpaper. That's exactly how she liked it. Invisible meant safe. Invisible meant no questions about her past, no curious stares, no uncomfortable conversations. She pushed open the glass door to the executive suite, her master key card granting her access to spaces most people could only dream of seeing. The office was massive, with floor-to-ceiling windows offering a breathtaking view of the city skyline. During the day, this was the domain of Alexander Chin, the 32-year-old tech billionaire whose company, Chin Innovations, occupied the entire building. Lily had never seen him in person, but his face was plastered on magazine covers in the lobby, always wearing that confident smile that spoke of a man who had never known what it felt like to scrub floors until your knees ached. She began her routine, emptying trash cans and dusting surfaces that probably cost more than her annual salary. The mahogany desk alone looked like it could feed a family for months. As she sprayed cleaner on the glass conference table, she tried to push away the gnawing loneliness that always seemed worse during these late-night hours. Her grandmother's voice echoed in her memory, "Li Mei, remember who you are, no matter where life takes you." But that was easier said than done when life had taken her so far from who she used to be. The phone rang. Lily froze, her hand still holding the cleaning cloth mid-wipe. The sound was sharp and intrusive in the silence, making her heart jump into her throat. Executive phones didn't ring at 12:47 a.m. They just didn't. She stared at the sleek black device on the desk as it continued its urgent chirping, each ring seeming louder than the last. She should ignore it. That was protocol. Cleaning staff were not supposed to answer executive phones under any circumstances. But what if it was an emergency? What if someone was in trouble? The ringing seemed to grow more desperate, and Lily found herself moving toward the desk before she could stop herself. Her hand trembled as she reached for the receiver. "Hello," she said quietly, hoping her voice wouldn't crack. A rapid stream of Mandarin Chinese poured through the phone, spoken so fast and with such urgency that it took her brain a moment to switch gears. The caller was a man and he sounded panicked. He was talking about a deal, something about time-sensitive contracts and a meeting that had been moved up. The words flowed over her like a river, and without thinking, she responded. "Nin dingi xia wa qi bang nin," she said in perfect Mandarin, her voice automatically adopting the formal tone her grandmother had drilled into her. "Wait a moment, I can help you." The caller paused, clearly surprised to hear fluent Chinese from someone answering Alexander Chen's direct line at this hour. He continued, explaining that he was Mr. Chen's business partner from Beijing, and there had been a critical development in their negotiations. He needed to speak with Alexander immediately. Lily found herself taking notes, her hand moving across a piece of paper as she wrote down the urgent message in both Chinese characters and English. It was like her body had a memory of its own, responding to the familiar rhythm of her native language. She assured the caller that she would make sure Mr. Chen received the message first thing in the morning, though she had no idea how she would manage that without revealing that she had answered his phone. When she hung up, the silence felt different. Heavier. She stared down at the notes she had written, her handwriting a bridge between two worlds she had tried so hard to keep separate. Her hands were shaking now, not from nervousness, but from the rush of speaking Chinese after so many years of suppressing that part of herself. What had she done? Lily quickly tore the paper from the notepad and folded it carefully, slipping it into her uniform pocket. She finished cleaning the office in record time, her mind racing with possibilities, none of them good. How would she explain this? How could she deliver the message without admitting she had answered the phone? And worse, what if someone had been listening? What if the calls were recorded? As she packed up her cleaning supplies, Lily caught sight of her reflection in the dark window. For just a moment, she didn't see the invisible cleaning lady in the gray uniform. She saw Li Mei, the girl who had once dreamed of being a translator, who had been the pride of her grandmother's heart, who had spoken 3 languages fluently before life had forced her to choose survival over dreams. The elevator ride to the ground floor felt eternal. Each floor that passed seemed to echo with the sound of her voice speaking Chinese, a sound she hadn't heard from her own lips in 3 years. By the time she reached her car in the parking garage, she had convinced herself that the whole thing had been a mistake, a moment of weakness that would have no consequences. She was wrong. As she drove home through the empty streets, Lily had no way of knowing that the executive floor had a sophisticated security system that recorded everything, including phone calls. She had no way of knowing that Alexander Chen made it a habit to review the overnight security footage every morning, checking for any irregularities in his building. And she certainly had no way of knowing that by tomorrow morning, the most powerful man in the city would be very interested in meeting the cleaning lady who spoke perfect Mandarin. The city lights blurred past her window as she drove toward her small apartment, carrying with her the weight of a secret that was about to change everything. Behind her, the corporate building stood like a silent sentinel against the night sky, holding within its walls the echo of words that would bridge 2 worlds and 2 hearts. The call had lasted less than 5 minutes, but those 5 minutes had set in motion a chain of events that would transform not just Lily's life, but the life of the man whose world she was about to enter in ways neither of them could possibly imagine. Alexander Chen's morning routine was as precise as a Swiss watch. At 5:30 a.m. he was already in his private gym on the building's top floor, working through a cardio session that would leave most people gasping for breath. By 6:15 he was showered and dressed in one of his perfectly tailored suits, ready to tackle another day of running a multi-billion-dollar empire. But this morning felt different somehow, though he couldn't quite put his finger on why. His assistant, Jennifer, was already at her desk when he arrived at 7 a.m. sharp, her efficiency matching his own demanding schedule. She handed him his usual black coffee and the morning briefing, but Alexander barely registered her words. Something was nagging at him, a feeling he couldn't shake. "Sir, you have the Peterson meeting at 9, followed by the board presentation at 11, Jennifer was saying, but Alexander found himself walking toward his office window, looking down at the city that was just beginning to wake up. "Jennifer, has there been any unusual activity in the building overnight?" he asked, turning back to face her. She looked puzzled. "Unusual how, sir?" Security reported everything normal. Alexander nodded, but the feeling persisted. He had built his fortune on trusting his instincts, and right now those instincts were telling him something significant had happened. He made a mental note to review the security footage later, something he did periodically but hadn't felt compelled to do in months. The morning passed in a blur of meetings and phone calls, but Alexander found his attention drifting. During the Peterson meeting he caught himself staring at his phone, wondering if he had missed something important. The board presentation went well, but his mind kept wandering to thoughts he couldn't quite grasp. It wasn't until lunchtime that he finally had a chance to call up the overnight security footage on his computer. He fast-forwarded through most of it, watching the time-lapse version of empty hallways and darkened offices. Then he slowed down when he saw the cleaning lady entering his executive suite. Alexander had seen her before in passing, a small, quiet woman who did her job efficiently and invisibly. He had never given her much thought if he was being honest. She was part of the building's ecosystem, as constant and unnoticed as the air conditioning or the elevator music. But as he watched the footage, something made him pause. He backed up the recording and watched more carefully. There she was, going through her routine when suddenly she stopped. Alexander leaned closer to his screen, watching as she approached his desk. Then she did something that made his blood run cold with surprise. She answered his phone. Alexander's jaw tightened. This was a serious breach of protocol. Cleaning staff were explicitly forbidden from answering executive phones. He was about to call security when he noticed something that made him pause. The woman's entire demeanor had changed. She wasn't just answering the phone, she was engaged in what appeared to be a serious conversation. Unfortunately, the security cameras didn't record audio, so Alexander could only watch as the cleaning lady took notes and spoke with obvious fluency in what appeared to be a complex conversation. The call lasted several minutes, and throughout it all, her body language suggested someone who was completely comfortable with whatever language she was speaking. When the call ended, Alexander watched her carefully fold a piece of paper and slip it into her pocket. She then finished cleaning his office and left, but there was something different about her movements now. She looked awakened somehow. More alive than he had ever seen her. Alexander sat back in his chair, his mind racing. Who was this woman? And what language had she been speaking? The time stamp on the footage showed 12:47 a.m., exactly when his Beijing partner Lu Wei would have been calling if there had been an emergency with their deal. A terrible possibility began to form in his mind. He quickly pulled up Lu Wei's contact information and dialed his number, his heart pounding as he waited for the connection to go through. "Alexander, my friend?" Lu Wei's voice came through clearly despite the distance. "I was hoping you would call. Lu, did you try to reach me last night? Around 12:47 a.m. my time." Yes. There was an urgent development with the Shanghai contract. I called your direct line but I spoke with someone else. A woman who spoke excellent Mandarin. She took my message and said she would make sure you received it." Alexander's grip tightened on the phone. "What exactly did you tell her?" "Everything about the contract revision and the moved-up meeting. She seemed very knowledgeable, asked all the right questions. I assumed she was your new assistant or translator. Her Chinese was flawless, Alexander. Better than many native speakers I work with." After ending the call with Lu Wei, Alexander sat in stunned silence. The cleaning lady had not only answered his phone but had conducted a sophisticated business conversation in Mandarin Chinese. She had taken down details about a multi-million-dollar deal and, according to Lu Wei, had asked intelligent questions that showed she understood the complexity of the situation. He called Jennifer into his office. "I need you to get me the personnel file for the cleaning lady who works the night shift on this floor." Jennifer looked confused but nodded. "I'll have to contact the cleaning service. They handle all the hiring for the custodial staff." 20 minutes later, Jennifer returned with a thin folder. "Her name is Lily Williams, sir. She's been with the cleaning service for 3 years, excellent performance reviews, no incidents. Very reliable." Alexander opened the file and studied the sparse information. Basic employment history, emergency contact information, and a photocopy of her driver's license. The picture showed a young woman with kind eyes and a hesitant smile. Nothing in the file suggested she spoke any language other than English, let alone that she was fluent enough in Mandarin to conduct complex business negotiations. "Jennifer, I want to meet with Ms. Williams. Can you arrange that?" "Sir, if there's been a problem with the cleaning service, I can contact their supervisor directly." "No," Alexander said firmly. "I want to speak with her personally. Can you have the cleaning service ask her to come in during regular business hours? Tomorrow afternoon would be fine." Jennifer looked puzzled but nodded. "Of course, sir. Should I tell them what this is regarding?" Alexander considered this. He didn't want to get the woman in trouble, but he needed answers. His business depended on trust and reliability, and someone who could speak Mandarin fluently was potentially very valuable to his company. But someone who had been hiding that skill while working as a cleaner raised questions he needed answered. "Just tell them I'd like to speak with her about a potential opportunity." After Jennifer left, Alexander found himself staring at Lily Williams' employee photo. There was something about her eyes that seemed familiar, though he was certain they had never actually met. She had the kind of face that could easily blend into a crowd, but now that he was really looking, he could see an intelligence there that her job didn't require. He spent the rest of the afternoon trying to focus on work, but his mind kept returning to the mystery of Lily Williams. Who was she really? Why was someone with advanced language skills working as a cleaner? And why had she hidden this ability for 3 years? That evening, Alexander found himself staying late at the office, something he rarely did. He told himself it was to catch up on work, but the truth was, he was hoping to see the mysterious cleaning lady again. He wanted to observe her to see if there were other clues about who she really was. At 11:30 p.m., he heard the soft sound of wheels on marble, her cleaning cart. Alexander dimmed his office lights and positioned himself where he could see through the glass walls without being easily spotted. There she was, the woman who had unknowingly turned his day upside down. Watching her work, Alexander found himself noticing details he had missed in the security footage. The way she moved with quiet efficiency, never wasting motion. The careful attention she paid to every surface, taking pride in work that most people would consider beneath them. There was a gracefulness to her movements that spoke of someone who had been taught to value diligence and precision. When she finished cleaning the outer office and moved toward his door, Alexander quietly moved away from the window. He listened as she worked, the soft sounds of her methodical cleaning routine. When she finally left, he walked to his desk and noticed something that made his heart race. There, placed neatly beside his computer keyboard, was a folded piece of paper. With trembling hands, Alexander unfolded it to find Lu Wei's message, written in both perfect Chinese characters and English translation. At the bottom, in small, neat handwriting, were the words, "I apologize for answering your phone. I hope this message reaches you safely. L.W." Alexander sank into his chair, staring at the note. The Chinese characters were beautifully formed, clearly written by someone with years of practice. The English translation was perfect, capturing not just the words but the nuance of Lu Wei's urgent message. This wasn't the work of someone who had learned Chinese in a college course. This was someone who truly understood the language. Tomorrow's meeting had just become the most important appointment on his calendar. Lily's hands were shaking as she stood outside the gleaming glass doors of Chen Innovations at 2 p.m. on a Tuesday afternoon. She had never seen the building during the day, and the difference was startling. Where nighttime brought emptiness and echoing silence, the daytime buzzed with activity. Well-dressed professionals moved through the lobby with purpose, their conversations creating a symphony of ambition and success. She felt completely out of place in her best outfit. A simple black dress she had bought for her grandmother's funeral 3 years ago and a cardigan that had seen better days. Compared to the designer clothes and confident stride of everyone around her, she might as well have been wearing a sign that said, "I don't belong here." The call from her supervisor at the cleaning service had come that morning, jolting her out of a restless sleep. "Lily, the folks at Chin Innovations want to speak with you this afternoon. Something about a potential opportunity." When she had asked for more details, her supervisor had seemed just as confused as she was. "All I know is they specifically requested you by name. Be there at 2 p.m. sharp, and for God's sake, don't mess this up. This is our biggest contract." Now, standing in the marble lobby she had only seen in the ghostly glow of security lighting, Lily felt like she was about to walk into her own execution. Had they discovered what she had done? Was she about to be fired, or worse, arrested for some kind of corporate espionage? The note she had left seemed like such a good idea at 2 a.m., but in the harsh light of day, it felt like a confession to a crime. "Excuse me, are you Lily Williams?" A perfectly polished young woman approached her, tablet in hand and wearing a smile that was professional but not unkind. "Yes," Lily managed to say, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm Jennifer, Mr. Chen's executive assistant. He's ready to see you now." Lily's knees nearly buckled. "Mr. Chen. Alexander Chen." The billionaire whose phone she had answered, whose private business she had become privy to, whose note she had written in languages she was supposed to have never learned. This was definitely about the phone call. The elevator ride to the executive floor felt like ascending to her doom. Jennifer made polite small talk about the weather, but Lily could barely process the words. Her mind was racing through possible explanations, excuses, anything that might make this situation less catastrophic than it appeared. "Here we are," Jennifer said as the elevator opened. "Mr. Chin is waiting in his office." The executive floor looked different in daylight. The marble floors gleamed, and sunlight streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows, making everything look like it belonged in a magazine spread. Lily had cleaned these halls countless times, but she had never truly seen them. Now, she felt like an intruder in a world where she clearly didn't belong. Jennifer led her through the outer office toward the imposing double doors she had seen so many times but never imagined walking through as anything other than cleaning staff. Jennifer knocked gently and opened the door. "Mr. Chen, Ms. Williams is here." "Thank you, Jennifer." "Please come in, Ms. Williams." Lily's first thought upon seeing Alexander Chen in person was that the magazine photos didn't do him justice. He was tall, probably 6 feet, with the kind of presence that filled a room even when he was sitting down. His dark hair was perfectly styled, and he wore a charcoal gray suit that probably cost more than she made in 6 months. But it was his eyes that caught her attention. Intelligent, intense, and currently focused entirely on her. "Please have a seat," he said, gesturing to one of the leather chairs across from his desk. His voice was deeper than she had expected, with just a hint of an accent that suggested English wasn't his first language. Lily perched on the edge of the chair, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. She couldn't bring herself to look directly at him, so she focused on a spot just over his left shoulder. "Ms. Williams, I want to start by saying that you're not in any trouble," Alexander said, and Lily felt some of the tension leave her shoulders. "I asked you here because I'm curious about something that happened 2 nights ago." Here it comes, Lily thought. She forced herself to meet his eyes. "I can explain about the phone call." Alexander leaned back in his chair, studying her. "I'm listening. I know I shouldn't have answered your phone. It's against the rules and I've never done anything like that before. But it was so late and the caller sounded so urgent and I thought maybe it was an emergency." The words tumbled out of her in a rush. "I'm sorry. I know I probably cost you a lot of money or messed up some important deal, and I understand if you want me fired." "Ms. Williams," Alexander said gently, "the caller was my business partner from Beijing." He said you spoke with him in fluent Mandarin and took a very accurate message about some complex contract negotiations. Is that correct? Lily nodded miserably. Yes, sir. Where did you learn to speak Mandarin? This was the question Lily had been dreading. The question that would require her to reveal parts of herself she had spent 3 years trying to hide. She took a deep breath and decided that if she was going down, she might as well go down with the truth. My grandmother raised me, she said quietly. She was from Beijing originally, came to America in the 1960s. She insisted I learn Mandarin, said it was important to know where I came from. I grew up in Chinatown, went to Chinese school on weekends, spoke Mandarin at home and English everywhere else. Alexander nodded encouragingly. That's impressive. It's not easy to maintain fluency in a second language. It wasn't a second language for me, Lily said, then immediately wished she hadn't. I mean, I learned both at the same time. My grandmother spoke to me in Chinese, my teachers spoke to me in English. I used to translate for her at doctor's appointments and things like that. Used to. She died 3 years ago. Lily's voice grew quiet. After that, I didn't really have anyone to speak Chinese with anymore. Alexander was quiet for a moment, and Lily could feel him studying her. When he spoke again, his voice was gentler. What did you do before you started working for the cleaning service? This was the question that would reveal just how far she had fallen. Lily straightened her shoulders and met his gaze directly. I was a translator. Freelance mostly. I worked with immigration lawyers, helped people navigate government paperwork, did some business translation. But after my grandmother died, I couldn't afford to keep her apartment in Chinatown, and I had to move. The translation work was irregular, and I needed something steady to pay the bills. So you took a job cleaning offices. It pays regularly and I didn't have to explain why I speak Chinese, Lily said, then immediately regretted the admission. Alexander leaned forward slightly. Why wouldn't you want to explain that? Lily felt heat rise in her cheeks. How could she explain to this successful, confident man that she had spent 3 years trying to disappear? That after her grandmother died, she had felt so lost and alone that she had deliberately chosen work that would make her invisible? People have assumptions, she said carefully, about who I am, where I come from. It's easier to just blend in. Alexander was quiet for a long moment, and Lily found herself studying his face. There was something there she hadn't expected. Understanding, maybe even sympathy. Ms. Williams, he said finally, I have a proposition for you. Lily's heart rate spiked. Sir? My company does a lot of business in China. We have partnerships with firms in Beijing, Shanghai, and Guangzhou. Right now, I rely on expensive translation services for our communications and frankly, they're not always reliable. I could use someone with your skills. Lily stared at him. You're offering me a job? I'm offering you an opportunity. A position as a cultural liaison and translator. You would work directly with me on our Chinese partnerships, handle sensitive communications, and help ensure that nothing gets lost in translation. The salary would be significantly more than what you're making now. Lily felt like the ground had shifted beneath her feet. I don't understand. Why would you trust me with something like that? You don't even know me. Alexander smiled, and it transformed his entire face. I know that you answered a phone call you shouldn't have answered because you thought someone might need help. I know that you took the time to write out a perfect translation and leave it where I would find it, even though you could have just ignored the whole thing. And I know that you've been hiding considerable talents while scrubbing floors, which tells me you're either very humble or very scared. Either way, those are qualities I value in someone I work with. Lily felt tears prick at her eyes. When was the last time someone had seen her potential instead of just her circumstances? I would need to think about it, she said. Of course. Take your time. But Lily, may I call you Lily? I want you to know that this isn't charity. This is business. I need someone with your skills and I'm willing to pay well for them. As Lily rode the elevator back down to the lobby, her mind was spinning. 3 years ago she had been Li Mei, the granddaughter who made her grandmother proud, the young woman with big dreams and bright prospects. Then grief and loneliness had transformed her into Lily Williams, the invisible cleaning lady who spoke to no one and asked for nothing. Now, Alexander Chin was offering her a chance to be someone new. Someone who used her skills, who was valued for her abilities, who might actually have a future worth imagining. The question was she brave enough to take it? Lily didn't sleep that night. She lay in her small studio apartment, staring at the ceiling and replaying every moment of her conversation with Alexander Chin. The business card he had given her sat on her nightstand, its expensive paper stock and embossed lettering a tangible reminder that the offer was real. She had walked the streets of her neighborhood for hours after leaving the Chin building, trying to process what had happened. Her grandmother's voice seemed to whisper in her memory, "Opportunities are like spring rain, Li Mei. They don't come often, but when they do, you must be ready to grow." By morning, Lily had made her decision. She called the number on Alexander's business card at exactly 9 a.m., her hands trembling as she dialed. "Alexander Chen's office, this is Jennifer." "Hi, this is Lily Williams. Mr. Chin asked me to call about the position he discussed with me yesterday." "Of course. Let me put you through to him right away." The phone barely rang before Alexander's voice came on the line. "Lily, I was hoping you'd call. Have you made a decision?" "Yes, sir. I'd like to accept your offer." There was a pause, and then she heard the smile in his voice. "Excellent. Can you start Monday? I'd like you to come in early so we can discuss your responsibilities and get you set up with everything you'll need. Monday would be perfect. One more thing, Lily. I'd like you to go shopping this weekend. Business attire, whatever you need. Have the receipts sent to me. Consider it a signing bonus." Lily's throat tightened. "Mr. Chen, I can't let you." "You can and you will. You're going to be representing my company in important meetings. Looking professional is part of the job. Besides," his voice gentled, "everyone deserves a fresh start." That weekend, Lily found herself in department stores she had only ever walked past, trying on clothes that cost more than she used to spend on groceries in a month. The saleswoman at the first store had looked at her with barely concealed disdain until Lily mentioned that the purchases were for her new position at Chin Innovations. Suddenly she was treated like royalty. Standing in the dressing room, looking at herself in a tailored blazer and pencil skirt, Lily barely recognized the woman in the mirror. For 3 years she had dressed to disappear. Now she was dressing to be seen. Monday morning arrived with typical San Francisco fog, but Lily felt like she was walking into sunshine as she entered the Chin building. This time she didn't feel out of place in the marble lobby. She belonged here now. Jennifer greeted her with a warm smile and led her to a smaller office adjacent to Alexander's. "This is your office," she said, opening the door to reveal a space with a view of the bay, a mahogany desk, and everything she could possibly need. "This is mine," Lily whispered, running her hand along the smooth desktop. "All yours. Mr. Chin is in meetings until 10, but he asked me to give you these." Jennifer handed her a stack of documents. "These are some of the contracts and communications you'll be working with. He thought you might want to familiarize yourself with the terminology." Lily spent the next hour reading through the documents, her excitement growing with each page. These were complex international agreements, joint ventures, and partnership deals that would challenge every skill she had. It was exactly the kind of work she had dreamed of doing when she first became a translator. At 10 a.m. sharp, Alexander knocked on her door. Today he wore a navy suit that emphasized his tall frame, and when he smiled, Lily felt an unexpected flutter in her chest. "How are you settling in?" he asked, taking a seat across from her desk. "It's wonderful. These contracts are fascinating. The Shanghai partnership especially, the cultural nuances in the language are really sophisticated." Alexander's eyebrows rose. "You've already identified cultural nuances?" "Well, yes. See here?" Lily pointed to a section of the contract. "The way they phrased this clause about intellectual property sharing, it's very formal, almost ceremonial. That suggests they view this as more than just a business deal. In Chinese culture, when you use this level of formality, you're indicating that you see the partnership as a relationship that will span generations." Alexander leaned closer to look at the document, and Lily caught a whiff of his cologne, something expensive and masculine that made her pulse quicken. "I had no idea," he said. "Our legal team translated this as standard contract language." "Legal translation is different from cultural translation," Lily explained, trying to ignore how his proximity was affecting her. "A legal translator gives you the words. A cultural translator gives you the meaning behind the words." "Show me more." For the next 2 hours, Lily walked Alexander through the documents, explaining subtleties and cultural context that had been lost in the standard translations. She watched his expressions change as he began to understand how much nuance his company had been missing. "Lily, this is incredible," he said finally. "You've just helped me understand my Chinese partners in a way I never have before. No wonder some of our negotiations have felt off." "Language is just the surface," Lily said, warming to the subject. "Real communication happens in the spaces between words, in the cultural assumptions and shared understandings. When those get lost, even perfect translation can fail." Alexander was looking at her with an expression she couldn't quite read. "Where did you learn all this?" "My grandmother," Lily said softly. She used to say that being Chinese in America meant living between two worlds, and that my job was to help build bridges between them. She sounds like a wise woman. She was. She would have loved. Lily stopped herself before she could say, you. The thought had come unbidden and it shocked her. Her grandmother would have approved of Alexander Chin, successful, intelligent, someone who valued the cultural knowledge she had worked so hard to pass down. She would have loved what? Alexander prompted gently. She would have loved knowing that her lessons were being put to good use, Lily said, recovering quickly. Alexander studied her for a moment, and Lily had the uncomfortable feeling that he could see right through her deflection. But he didn't press the issue. Instead, he stood and straightened his tie. I have a lunch meeting with the Beijing partners in an hour. Would you like to join me? I think having you there could make a significant difference in how the conversation goes. Lily's eyes widened. You want me at a business lunch? On my first day? I want my cultural liaison to help me navigate a potentially tricky conversation. That's exactly what I hired you for. An hour later, Lily found herself in one of the city's most exclusive restaurants, seated at a table with Alexander and 3 executives from Beijing. She had changed into one of her new dresses, an elegant navy blue that made her feel both professional and confident. The Beijing executives were polite but reserved when Alexander introduced her as his cultural liaison. She could see them sizing her up, trying to determine her role and importance. But when the conversation began in earnest and she started translating not just words but context and cultural significance, their entire demeanor changed. Your Ms. Williams understands our position very well, said Mr. Liu, the senior partner, speaking in Mandarin to test her. I try to understand the heart of what people are saying, not just their words, Lily replied in perfect Mandarin, her tone respectful but confident. The 3 men exchanged glances and she saw approval in their eyes. For the next 2 hours, she facilitated a conversation that went far beyond anything Alexander had achieved in previous meetings. She helped clarify misunderstandings, explained cultural references, and even suggested compromises that honored both American and Chinese business practices. When the lunch ended, the Beijing partners were animated and enthusiastic, talking about moving forward with plans that had been stalled for months. That was extraordinary, Alexander said as they walked back to the office. I've been trying to get them to commit to the expansion project for 6 months. You got them excited about it in 2 hours. They were never opposed to the expansion, Lily explained. They were concerned about whether you truly understood their market. When they saw that you had brought in someone who could help bridge the cultural gap, they realized you were serious about doing business the right way. Alexander stopped walking and turned to face her. They were standing on the sidewalk outside the building, and the afternoon sun caught the gold flecks in his dark eyes. Lily, I have to ask you something, and I want you to be completely honest with me. Her heart rate picked up. Okay. Why were you really working as a cleaner? Someone with your intelligence, your skills, your cultural knowledge, you could have been working for any international company in the city. Why were you scrubbing floors? Lily felt her defenses rise automatically. This was the question she had dreaded, the one that would require her to expose the grief and fear that had driven her into hiding. It's complicated, she said. I have time. They stood there on the busy sidewalk, people streaming around them, and Lily realized that Alexander wasn't going to let this go. He deserved the truth, especially after what he had done for her. After my grandmother died, I fell apart, she said quietly. She was the only family I had, the only person who really knew me. When she was gone, I felt like I had lost my identity. I didn't know who I was supposed to be anymore. Alexander's expression softened. So you decided to become invisible. It seemed easier, safer. If no one knew who I really was, then no one could judge me or find me lacking. I could just exist. But you weren't just existing, Alexander said. You were hiding. From yourself as much as from everyone else. Lily looked up at him, surprised by his insight. How do you know that? Because I recognize the look. I've seen it in the mirror. You? Lily couldn't hide her surprise. But you're so successful, so confident. Alexander smiled ruefully. Success doesn't mean you never doubt yourself. When I started this company, I was terrified that people would see me as just another young Asian guy who got lucky with tech money. I spent years proving myself over and over again, afraid that if I showed any weakness, anyone would see that I didn't really belong in the world I was trying to build. But you do belong. You built all this. Yes, but it took me a long time to believe that. And it took meeting people who saw my worth before I could see it myself. He paused, his eyes meeting hers. The way I see yours. Lily felt heat rise in her cheeks. There was something in his voice, in the way he was looking at her, that made her pulse race. This was more than just a boss being kind to an employee. This was something else entirely. Mr. Chin? Alexander, he corrected. And I meant what I said. You have extraordinary talents, Lily. Don't waste them trying to be invisible. As they rode the elevator back to the executive floor, Lily couldn't shake the feeling that everything in her life was changing. Not just her job, not just her circumstances, but something deeper. For 3 years, she had been content to exist in the shadows, asking for nothing and expecting nothing. But Alexander Chin was asking her to step into the light, to be seen, to matter. And for the first time since her grandmother died, she was beginning to think that maybe, just maybe, she was ready to try. The question was, what would she discover about herself once she stopped hiding? And what would she discover about the man who was giving her the chance to find out? 3 weeks into her new position, Lily was still adjusting to the dramatic change in her daily routine. Instead of arriving at work when the city was asleep, she now commuted during rush hour, joining the rivers of professionals flowing through downtown San Francisco. Instead of working in solitude with only the hum of fluorescent lights for company, her days were filled with meetings, phone calls, and the constant buzz of a busy office. But the biggest adjustment wasn't the schedule or the environment, it was learning to be visible again. "Good morning, Lily," called out James from accounting as she walked past his office. 3 weeks ago he wouldn't have known her name. Now he made a point of greeting her every day. The same was true for most of the staff at Chin Innovations. Word had spread quickly that Alexander's new cultural liaison had single-handedly salvaged several stalled negotiations with their Chinese partners. Lily settled into her office and began reviewing the morning's correspondence. There were emails from Beijing, Shanghai, and Guangzhou, all requiring different levels of cultural sensitivity in their responses. It was exactly the kind of work she had missed during her years of self-imposed exile. A soft knock at her door interrupted her concentration. "Come in," she called, expecting to see Jennifer with the morning's schedule. Instead, Alexander appeared in her doorway, carrying 2 cups of coffee and wearing a smile that made her heart skip a beat. Over the past 3 weeks, she had tried to maintain professional boundaries, but it was becoming increasingly difficult to ignore the way her pulse quickened whenever he was near. "I thought you might need caffeine," he said, setting one of the cups on her desk. "You've been staying late every night this week." "There's a lot to catch up on," Lily said, accepting the coffee gratefully. "I'm still learning the nuances of each partnership." Alexander took a seat across from her desk, a position that had become familiar over the past few weeks. Their morning meetings had evolved from formal briefings to comfortable conversations that often stretched longer than either of them intended. "You know, you don't have to prove yourself every single day," he said gently. "I already know you're good at this." Lily looked up from her papers, meeting his eyes. "It's not about proving myself to you. It's about proving myself to me." Alexander nodded thoughtfully. "I understand that. But don't burn yourself out trying to make up for 3 years in 3 weeks. There was something in his tone that made Lily study his face more carefully. He looked tired, she realized. His usually perfect appearance showed signs of strain, a slight shadow under his eyes, a tension in his shoulders that suggested he had been working too many long hours himself. "You're one to talk," she said. "Your office lights are still on when I leave every night. That's different. I'm used to the pace." "Being used to something doesn't make it healthy," Lily said, then immediately wondered if she had overstepped. Was she allowed to express concern for her boss's well-being? But Alexander smiled, a genuine expression that reached his eyes. "When did you become my keeper?" "I'm not trying to be your keeper. I notice things." "What else do you notice?" The question hung in the air between them, and Lily felt the familiar flutter of attraction mixed with professional anxiety. These moments were becoming more frequent, conversations that felt like they were dancing around something neither of them was ready to name. "I notice that you care about this company and the people who work for it more than most CEOs would," she said carefully. "I notice that you remember details about everyone's lives, and you actually listen when people talk to you. And I notice that you work too hard and probably don't have enough people in your life who tell you to take care of yourself." Alexander was quiet for a moment, his dark eyes studying her face. "You're very observant. It's part of the job. Understanding people, reading between the lines. Is that what you're doing with me? Reading between the lines?" Lily felt heat rise in her cheeks. This conversation was veering into dangerous territory, the kind of personal territory that she had been carefully avoiding since she started working for him. "I should get back to these emails," she said, reaching for her computer mouse. "Lily." Alexander's voice was soft but insistent. Look at me. Reluctantly, she met his eyes. I want you to know that what you think matters to me. Not just professionally but personally. You're not just an employee anymore. You're. He seemed to struggle with the words, and Lily held her breath, waiting. You're important to me, he said finally. Before Lily could respond, Jennifer's voice came through the intercom. Mr. Chin, your 10 a.m. appointment is here. The spell was broken. Alexander stood, straightening his tie in a gesture that Lily was beginning to recognize as his way of regaining his composure. We should continue this conversation later, he said. Should we? Lily asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Yes, he said firmly. We should. After he left, Lily sat staring at her computer screen, her mind racing. What had just happened? Had her boss just told her she was important to him? And if so, what did that mean? She tried to focus on her work, but concentration was impossible. Every email she opened seemed to blur together, every phone call felt like it was happening to someone else. By lunchtime she had accomplished virtually nothing. You look like you need air, Jennifer said, appearing in her doorway. Want to grab lunch together? Lily had been so focused on work that she hadn't made many friends at the company yet. Jennifer's invitation felt like a lifeline. I'd love that, she said. 20 minutes later, they were seated at a small cafe around the corner from the office, and Lily found herself grateful for Jennifer's easy conversation and genuine warmth. So how are you adjusting to working here? Jennifer asked over salads. It's wonderful, Lily said. Challenging but in the best possible way. And working with Alexander? He can be pretty intense. Lily nearly choked on her water. Intense. Oh, don't get me wrong, he's a great boss. Fair, intelligent, treats everyone with respect. But he's also very focused, driven. Sometimes I think he forgets that other people need things like sleep and weekends. He seems to have forgotten that he needs those things too. Jennifer gave her a sharp look. You've noticed that, have you? It's hard not to notice. The man practically lives at the office. He does live at the office, practically speaking. Ever since his divorce 2 years ago, work has been his entire life. Lily felt something cold settle in her stomach. He was married? For about 3 years. His ex-wife couldn't handle the demands of his career, said she felt like she was married to his company instead of him. It was messy. Lily tried to process this information. Alexander had been married. Had loved someone enough to marry them. And it had ended badly. He doesn't talk about it, Jennifer continued. But I think it really affected him. Made him even more focused on work, if that's possible. That must have been difficult. I think it was. But lately he seems different. Lighter somehow. More engaged with people instead of just with spreadsheets and contracts. Jennifer smiled. I think having you around has been good for him. Lily felt her cheeks warm. I don't think I have anything to do with that. Don't you? Jennifer's smile widened. Lily, in the 3 years I've worked for Alexander, I've never seen him bring coffee to an employee. I've never seen him spend an hour every morning just talking to someone about their projects. And I've definitely never seen him look at someone the way he looks at you. Jennifer. I'm not trying to make you uncomfortable. I'm just saying that whatever's happening between you two, it's making him happy. And Alexander Chin deserves to be happy. As they walked back to the office, Lily's mind was spinning with Jennifer's revelations. Alexander had been married. His ex-wife had left him because of his dedication to work. And now, apparently, people were noticing the way he looked at her. What was she getting herself into? The afternoon passed in a blur of meetings and phone calls, but Lily found herself constantly aware of Alexander's presence in the office next door. Every time she heard his voice, every time she caught a glimpse of him through the glass walls, she felt that now familiar flutter of attraction mixed with something deeper. At 6 p.m., most of the office had cleared out, but Lily was still at her desk, trying to catch up on the work she had neglected during her distracted morning. She was so absorbed in translating a complex contract that she didn't notice Alexander standing in her doorway until he spoke. I thought we had an agreement about working late every night. Lily looked up to find him leaning against her door frame, his tie loosened and his sleeves rolled up. The casual look suited him, made him seem more approachable somehow. I lost some time this morning, she said. I wanted to finish this before tomorrow. The contract can wait until tomorrow. You can't. I can't what? Alexander walked into her office and gently but firmly closed her laptop. You can't keep pushing yourself this hard. It's not sustainable. Says the man who works 12-hour days. Do as I say, not as I do. Alexander smiled, but there was something serious in his eyes. Come on. Let me take you to dinner. Lily's heart rate spiked. Dinner? As in food. You know, that thing people eat to survive? I bet you skipped lunch to work on that contract. I had lunch with Jennifer. Good. Then you can have dinner with me. It wasn't really a question, and Lily found herself nodding before she had fully processed what she was agreeing to. 20 minutes later, she was seated across from Alexander at a small Italian restaurant, trying to pretend that this felt like a business dinner instead of something much more personal. This is nice, she said, looking around at the intimate lighting and cozy atmosphere. It's one of my favorite places. Small, quiet, good food. No one bothers you here. Do you get bothered a lot in restaurants? Alexander shrugged. Sometimes. The price of having your picture in business magazines, I suppose. That must be strange, being recognized. You get used to it. Though I have to admit, it's nice to be here with someone who knew me as just the guy whose phone you answered inappropriately. Lily laughed, surprised by how easy it was to relax with him outside the office. I still can't believe I did that. I can't believe you tried to hide for 3 years. What a waste that would have been. A waste? Alexander leaned forward slightly, his expression growing serious. Lily, you have a gift. Not just for languages, but for understanding people, for building bridges between different worlds. Hiding that gift, denying it to the world, that would have been a tragedy. Lily felt tears prick at her eyes. I don't know if I believe that yet. Then believe me. I spent my entire adult life building a company that connects different cultures, different markets, different ways of thinking. I know talent when I see it, and I know value when I encounter it. You, Lily Williams, are invaluable. The intensity in his voice, the sincerity in his eyes, made Lily's breath catch. This wasn't just professional praise. This was something much deeper. Alexander. I know this is complicated, he said quietly. I know there are professional boundaries, power dynamics, all sorts of reasons why this is probably a bad idea. This? The way I feel about you. The words hung in the air between them like a bridge neither of them was sure they should cross. Lily felt her heart pounding so hard she was sure he could hear it. How do you feel about me? She whispered. Alexander reached across the table and gently took her hand. His touch was warm, steady, completely right. Like I've been waiting my whole life for someone to answer my phone in the middle of the night and change everything. The next morning, Lily arrived at work with her heart still racing from the previous evening. Alexander's words echoed in her mind, like I've been waiting my whole life for someone to answer my phone in the middle of the night and change everything. They had talked for 3 more hours after that, sharing stories about their childhoods, their dreams, their fears. It had felt like the most natural thing in the world, 2 people discovering they understood each other in ways they hadn't expected. But now, in the cold light of day, sitting in her office while Alexander was in his, Lily wondered if they had made a mistake. Dating your boss was complicated under any circumstances, but dating a billionaire CEO when you used to clean his office? That seemed like a recipe for disaster. A knock at her door interrupted her spiraling thoughts. Come in, she called, expecting Jennifer or one of the other staff members. Instead, Alexander appeared in her doorway, carrying 2 cups of coffee and wearing a slightly uncertain expression that was completely at odds with his usual confidence. Good morning, he said, setting 1 cup on her desk. I wasn't sure if you drank coffee this morning or if you were having second thoughts about everything. Lily looked up at him, taking in the vulnerability in his dark eyes. This powerful man who commanded boardrooms and made million-dollar decisions was nervous about whether she wanted coffee from him. The realization was both endearing and reassuring. I'm having thoughts, she said carefully. But not second thoughts. Relief flooded his features. Good. Because I have a proposition for you. Another one? Alexander smiled, and Lily felt her heart skip the way it always did when he looked at her like that. This one's business-related. Mostly. I'm listening. The Chen family is hosting a dinner party this weekend for our Beijing partners. It's at my parents' house in Pacific Heights, very traditional, very formal. I need someone there who can help navigate the cultural expectations and make sure nothing gets lost in translation. Lily felt her stomach flutter with nerves. You want me to meet your parents? I want my cultural liaison to help me host an important dinner. The fact that you'll be meeting my parents is just a bonus. Alexander, I don't know if I'm ready for something like that. He sat down across from her desk, his expression growing serious. Lily, I know this is all happening fast. I know we're navigating new territory here, professionally and personally. But I need you to know something. What? This isn't just attraction for me. This isn't just about how beautiful you are or how impressive your skills are, though both of those things are absolutely true. You make me want to be better. You make me remember why I started this company in the first place. To build bridges between cultures, to create understanding where there was once confusion. Lily felt tears prick at her eyes. You do that anyway. You don't need me for that. Yes, I do. You see things I miss. You understand nuances I overlook. Yesterday's lunch meeting with the Beijing partners was the most successful negotiation I've had in months, and it was because of you. It was because of us, Lily corrected. We work well together. Yes, we do. In every way that matters. The intensity in his voice made Lily's breath catch. There was something in his eyes that she was afraid to name, something that looked dangerously close to the emotion she was trying so hard not to feel herself. What are you asking me, Alexander? I'm asking you to take a chance. On the dinner party, on us, on the possibility that sometimes the best things in life come from the most unexpected places. Lily stared at him for a long moment, her mind racing through all the reasons this was complicated, all the ways it could go wrong. But then she thought about how she felt when she was with him, seen, valued, understood in ways she hadn't been since her grandmother died. Okay, she said quietly. Okay to the dinner party or okay to us? Both. Alexander's smile was radiant. Thank you. The rest of the week passed in a whirlwind of preparation. Alexander briefed Lily on each of the guests who would be attending the dinner party, their business relationships, their cultural backgrounds, and their personal preferences. She studied traditional Chinese dinner etiquette, researched appropriate conversation topics, and even practiced her formal Mandarin with language tapes she hadn't touched in years. But underneath all the professional preparation was a current of personal anxiety that Lily couldn't shake. She was going to meet Alexander's parents. The fact that it was technically a business function didn't change the significance of the moment. On Friday afternoon, Alexander surprised her by leaving work early to take her shopping. I have clothes, Lily protested as he led her toward Union Square. You have beautiful clothes, Alexander agreed. But tomorrow night calls for something special. Traditional Chinese dinner parties have their own dress code. 2 hours later, Lily found herself the owner of an elegant qipao dress in deep emerald silk, cut in a modern style that was both respectful of tradition and flattering to her figure. Alexander had insisted on paying for it, brushing off her protests with a smile. It's a business expense, he said. And even if it wasn't, I want to do this for you. Why? Because you deserve beautiful things. Because you've spent 3 years denying yourself everything you wanted, and I want to give some of it back to you. That evening, as Lily stood in front of her bathroom mirror trying on the dress, she barely recognized herself. The woman looking back at her was elegant, confident, beautiful. She looked like someone who belonged at fancy dinner parties, someone who could hold her own in any room. She looked like Li Mei again. Saturday evening arrived with typical San Francisco fog, but Lily felt like she was walking into sunlight as Alexander picked her up in his sleek black car. He wore a perfectly tailored black suit with a subtle pattern that complemented her dress, and when he saw her, his breath caught audibly. You look incredible, he said, his voice slightly hoarse. Thank you. You look pretty incredible yourself. The drive to Pacific Heights took them through some of the most exclusive neighborhoods in the city, but Lily found herself more nervous about the conversation than the scenery. Tell me about your parents, she said. My father is very traditional, very formal. He built his first company from nothing when he came to America in the 1970s, and he expects excellence in everything. My mother is warmer, but she's also very protective of the family reputation. Are they going to like me? Alexander reached over and took her hand. They're going to love you. But even if they didn't, it wouldn't change how I feel about you. The Chen family home was a stunning Victorian mansion overlooking the bay, with manicured gardens and a circular driveway that spoke of generations of success. As they walked to the front door, Lily felt her nerves spike. Remember, Alexander said quietly, you belong here. You're not the cleaning lady anymore. You're my partner in every sense of the word. The door opened before they could knock, revealing an elegant woman in her 50s who shared Alexander's dark eyes and confident bearing. Alexander, she said warmly, embracing her son before turning to Lily with obvious curiosity. Mother, I'd like you to meet Lily Williams, my cultural liaison and the woman who's been instrumental in our recent success with the Beijing partnerships. Mrs. Chen's eyes sharpened with interest as she extended her hand to Lily. Ms. Williams, Alexander has told us so much about your work. I understand you speak Mandarin? Yes, ma'am, Lily replied, switching seamlessly to Mandarin. It's an honor to meet you. Thank you for including me in your beautiful home. Mrs. Chen's eyebrows rose, clearly impressed by Lily's fluency and formal manners. Your pronunciation is excellent. Where did you learn? My grandmother was from Beijing. She insisted I learn properly. A wise grandmother. Come, let me introduce you to our guests. The evening that followed was unlike anything in Lily's recent experience. She found herself engaged in sophisticated conversations in both English and Mandarin, helping to facilitate discussions between the American and Chinese executives, and gradually realizing that she was not just attending this dinner, she was helping to host it. Alexander stayed close to her throughout the evening, but she noticed that he let her take the lead in many of the cultural exchanges. When one of the Beijing partners made a reference to classical Chinese poetry, she was able to continue the conversation knowledgeably. When another guest asked about American business customs, she provided explanations that bridged both perspectives. Your young lady is quite impressive, she overheard Mr. Liu telling Alexander in Mandarin, clearly not expecting her to understand. She's extraordinary, Alexander replied, also in Mandarin. And she's not just my cultural liaison. She's someone very special to me. Lily felt heat rise in her cheeks, but also something else. A warmth that had nothing to do with embarrassment and everything to do with the pride she heard in Alexander's voice. Later, as the evening wound down and the guests began to leave, Mrs. Chen approached Lily while Alexander was saying goodbye to the last of the business partners. Walk with me, she said, leading Lily to the garden terrace overlooking the bay. Mrs. Chen, thank you again for this evening. It was wonderful. Lily, Mrs. Chen said, using her first name for the first time, may I speak frankly? Lily's heart rate spiked. Of course. I have never seen my son look at a woman the way he looks at you. Not even his ex-wife received such attention from him. Lily wasn't sure how to respond to that. He's a wonderful man. Yes, he is. He's also stubborn, driven, and sometimes so focused on his work that he forgets to take care of himself. He needs someone who can match his intelligence but also remind him that there's more to life than business. I'm not sure I understand what you're asking me. Mrs. Chen smiled. I'm not asking you anything. I'm telling you that you have my blessing whatever happens between you and my son. You're good for him, Lily. You make him happy in a way I haven't seen since he was a child. As they drove home through the quiet streets, Lily felt like she was floating. The evening had been a success beyond her wildest expectations. She had not only met Alexander's parents but had earned their approval. More importantly, she had discovered that she could hold her own in his world without losing herself in the process. Penny for your thoughts, Alexander said as they stopped at a red light. I was thinking about how different my life is now compared to 6 weeks ago. Do you miss it? The simplicity of your old life. Lily considered the question seriously. I miss the safety of it sometimes. When you're invisible, no one can disappoint you or hurt you or expect too much from you. But I don't miss feeling like I was wasting my life. I don't miss going to bed every night wondering if this was all I was meant for. Alexander reached over and took her hand. This is just the beginning, Lily. We're just getting started. As he walked her to her apartment door, Lily felt the weight of possibility settling around them. They stood in her hallway, neither wanting to end the evening but both aware that they were standing at the edge of something that would change everything. Lily, Alexander said softly, stepping closer to her. Yes. I'm falling in love with you. The words hung in the air between them, honest and vulnerable and absolutely terrifying. Lily felt her heart stop, then start again at double speed. Alexander. You don't have to say anything. I just needed you to know. But as she looked into his eyes, Lily realized that she did need to say something. Because the truth was she was falling too. Had been falling since the moment he offered her a chance to stop hiding. I'm falling in love with you too, she whispered. Alexander's smile was soft and grateful and full of promise. When he kissed her, gentle and sweet and full of all the words they hadn't yet found the courage to say, Lily felt like she was finally, truly home. 3 months into their relationship, both professional and personal, Lily had settled into a rhythm that felt almost too good to be true. Her days were filled with challenging work that utilized every skill she possessed. Her evenings often included dinners with Alexander where they talked about everything from business strategy to childhood memories, and her weekends had transformed from lonely stretches of time into adventures exploring the city with someone who seemed to see magic in ordinary moments. But on this particular Monday morning, as Lily reviewed her emails before Alexander's arrival, she felt the familiar flutter of anxiety that came with high-stakes negotiations. Today marked the beginning of the most important business deal Chen Innovations had ever attempted. A joint venture with a consortium of Chinese companies that would expand their reach into the Asian market and potentially double their revenue within 5 years. The negotiations had been 18 months in the making, and everything depended on a series of meetings this week with executives flying in from Beijing, Shanghai, and Guangzhou. Lily would be translating not just language but cultural nuances, business customs, and the kind of subtle communications that could make or break deals worth hundreds of millions of dollars. "Good morning, beautiful," Alexander said, appearing in her doorway with their ritual morning coffee. But despite his casual greeting, Lily could see the tension in his shoulders, the slight tightness around his eyes that indicated he was feeling the pressure as much as she was. "Good morning. Ready for the biggest week of your career?" "Our career," Alexander corrected, settling into the chair across from her desk. "I couldn't do this without you, Lily. You know that, right? You could do it. It just might not go as smoothly." "No, I couldn't. Not like this. The level of trust and rapport we've built with the Chinese partners, that's because of you. Your cultural insights, your ability to help them feel understood and respected. That's what's made this deal possible." Lily felt a warm glow at his words but also a spike of anxiety. No pressure or anything. Alexander reached across the desk and took her hand. "Hey, we've got this. You've got this. Trust yourself the way I trust you." The first day of negotiations went better than Lily had dared to hope. The Chinese executives were clearly impressed by her fluency and cultural knowledge, and several times she was able to clarify points that might have otherwise led to misunderstandings. Alexander deferred to her expertise gracefully, never undermining her authority but also making it clear that they were partners in the process. By the end of the day, they had made significant progress on several key points of the agreement. As the Chinese delegation headed back to their hotel, their lead negotiator, Chairman Wang, approached Lily. "Ms. Williams," he said in Mandarin, "your understanding of our perspective has been invaluable today. Mr. Qin is fortunate to have found someone who can truly bridge our cultures." "Thank you, Chairman Wang. I believe this partnership will benefit everyone involved." "I agree. Which is why I hope you understand that what we discuss in these meetings must remain completely confidential. There are competitors who would pay handsomely for information about our negotiation strategy. Of course, professional discretion is fundamental to my role." After the Chinese delegation left, Alexander found Lily packing up her notes and translation materials. "How do you think it went?" he asked. "Better than I expected. Chairman Wang seems genuinely interested in making this work, though I think he's still testing us to see how committed we are to understanding their perspective." "And Mr. Liu?" "More cautious. He's the one we need to win over. I get the sense that he's been burned by American companies before who promised cultural sensitivity but didn't deliver." Alexander nodded thoughtfully. "Your read on people is always spot on. What's your instinct about tomorrow?" "I think they're going to push harder on the intellectual property clauses. It's a point of pride for them. They want to make sure this partnership is truly equitable, not just another case of Chinese companies providing manufacturing while Americans keep all the innovation." "How do we address that?" "We show them we're serious about true collaboration. We share some of our proprietary technology up front as a gesture of good faith. It's risky, but it demonstrates that we see them as true partners, not just manufacturers." Alexander was quiet for a moment, considering. That's a significant risk. The biggest deals always involve risk. But Chairman Wang mentioned something today about long-term thinking versus short-term profits. If we show them we're thinking long-term, they'll be more likely to commit fully to the partnership. "All right. I trust your judgment. Let's plan for that approach tomorrow." Tuesday's negotiations were more intense than the first day. As Lily had predicted, the intellectual property discussions dominated the morning session. When Alexander announced that Qin Innovations was prepared to share certain proprietary technologies immediately upon signing the agreement, the reaction from the Chinese delegation was electric. "This is unexpected," Chairman Wang said in Mandarin, leaning back in his chair with obvious surprise. "Mr. Qin understands that true partnership requires mutual trust," Lily translated, then added her own cultural context. "In Chinese business philosophy, showing trust first is often the key to receiving trust in return." The afternoon session flew by as both sides worked through technical details with a new spirit of cooperation. But as they were preparing to adjourn for the day, Lily noticed something that made her blood run cold. David Park, Qin Innovations' head of legal affairs, was having a quiet conversation with someone on his phone in the corner of the conference room. Lily's Mandarin was good enough to catch fragments of what he was saying, and what she heard made her stomach drop. "Intellectual property sharing tomorrow? Yes, the full technical specifications. Worth at least $50 million to the right buyer." Lily felt like ice water had been poured into her veins. David Park was selling information about their negotiations to a competitor. He was betraying not just the company, but the trust that Alexander had placed in all of them. After the Chinese delegation left, Lily lingered in the conference room, trying to decide what to do. Should she confront David directly? Should she tell Alexander immediately? The evidence was circumstantial. She had only heard one side of a phone conversation, but her instincts told her something was very wrong. Lily? Alexander appeared in the doorway. Everything okay? You look pale. I need to talk to you. Privately. Alexander's expression grew serious. My office. Once they were behind closed doors, Lily took a deep breath and told him what she had overheard. Alexander listened without interruption, his face growing darker with each detail. Are you certain about what you heard? He asked when she finished. I'm certain about the words. But I only heard his side of the conversation, and it's possible I misunderstood the context. Alexander was quiet for a long moment, staring out his office window at the city below. David has been with the company for 5 years. I've trusted him with our most sensitive information. I know. I hope I'm wrong. But your instincts are usually right. Alexander turned back to face her. If this is true, it could destroy the entire deal. The Chinese partners specifically emphasized the importance of confidentiality. If they discover there's been a leak, they'll walk away immediately, Lily finished. And they'll never trust us again. What do you think we should do? The fact that Alexander was asking for her advice in such a critical situation wasn't lost on Lily. 3 months ago she had been invisible. Now he was treating her as a true partner in the most important decision the company had ever faced. We need to be sure before we do anything. If we accuse David and we're wrong, it could destroy his career and damage company morale. But if we're right and we don't act, the whole deal could collapse. Alexander ran his hands through his hair. I can't believe I'm even considering that someone on my senior team would betray us like this. Power and money make people do things they never thought they would do. Not you, Alexander said, looking directly at her. I would trust you with anything, Lily. Everything. The intensity in his voice made Lily's heart race. How can you be so sure? Because I know who you are. I've seen your character, your integrity, your loyalty. You could have kept your head down and stayed invisible forever, but instead you risked everything to help me when I needed it most. That's not the kind of person who betrays trust. Wednesday morning brought new complications. David Park arrived at the office early and immediately requested a private meeting with Alexander. Lily watched through her office window as the two men had what appeared to be an intense conversation in Alexander's office. 20 minutes later, Alexander appeared in her doorway, his face grim. David just told me that he's received an offer from Hartmann Industries for inside information about our negotiations. He claims he rejected it, but he wanted me to know that our security might be compromised. Lily felt her pulse spike. That's convenient timing. Very convenient. Either he's trying to get ahead of the story because he knows we're suspicious, or he's genuinely trying to help us identify the real leak. What did you tell him? I thanked him for the information and asked him to keep his ears open for any other suspicious activity. And I've decided to test him. I'm going to give him false information about today's negotiation strategy and see if it shows up in our competitors' hands. The test came that afternoon. Alexander announced to the senior team, including David, that Chin Innovations was prepared to offer an additional 20% revenue share to secure the deal. It was exactly the kind of information that would be valuable to competitors and exactly the kind of concession that would concern the Chinese partners if it leaked. Lily spent the afternoon session with the Chinese delegation discussing completely different aspects of the agreement, carefully monitoring their reactions and body language for any sign that they had heard about the false revenue share offer. At 4:30 p.m., Chairman Wang's phone buzzed with a text message. Lily watched his face carefully as he read it, and saw his expression darken considerably. Ms. Williams, he said in Mandarin, may I speak with you privately? Lily's heart sank, but she nodded. Of course. Chairman Wang led her to a quiet corner of the conference room. I have just received some troubling information about Mr. Chen's negotiation strategy. I hope it is not accurate. What kind of information? That he is prepared to offer us an additional 20% revenue share. If this is true, it suggests that either he has been negotiating in bad faith from the beginning, or that there is a serious security breach in his organization. Lily felt sick. The false information had leaked exactly as Alexander had feared. David Park was definitely the source. Chairman Wang, may I ask who provided you with this information? Someone claiming to represent a competing firm, offering to sell us intelligence about Chin Innovation strategy. We did not pay for this information, but the fact that it was offered concerns us greatly. I understand your concern. May I suggest that you speak directly with Mr. Chen about this? I believe there may be more to this situation than it appears. 20 minutes later, Lily, Alexander, and Chairman Wang were in Alexander's office. The Chinese executive was clearly agitated, and Lily could see that the entire deal was hanging by a thread. Chairman Wang, Alexander began, I want to be completely transparent with you about what has happened. For the next 10 minutes, Alexander explained about their suspicions regarding David Park, the test they had conducted, and their commitment to maintaining absolute security and trust in their business relationship. He showed Chairman Wang the company's internal security protocols and offered to have their IT department conduct a complete audit of all communications related to the negotiations. Chairman Wang listened intently, occasionally asking questions that Lily translated with careful attention to both meaning and cultural sensitivity. Mr. Chin, Chairman Wang said finally, your honesty in this matter is refreshing. Many American executives would have tried to hide such a security breach. I believe that trust is the foundation of any successful partnership, Alexander replied. I would rather risk losing this deal by being honest than build a partnership on deception. Chairman Wang nodded slowly. And Ms. Williams, what is your assessment of this situation? Lily took a deep breath. This was the moment that would define not just the deal, but her relationship with Alexander and her future with the company. Chairman Wang, I believe Mr. Chen has acted with complete integrity throughout this process. The security breach was discovered and addressed immediately. More importantly, his willingness to be transparent with you about it demonstrates the kind of partner he will be in the long term. You speak very confidently for someone who has worked with Mr. Chen for only a few months. I speak confidently because I have seen his character tested under pressure. When he discovered the breach, his first concern was not protecting the deal or his company's reputation. His first concern was maintaining trust with you and your consortium. Chairman Wang was quiet for a long moment, studying both Alexander and Lily. Finally he smiled. Very well. We will proceed with the negotiations. But I want your personal assurance, Ms. Williams, that you will continue to facilitate communications between our organizations. Your presence gives me confidence that cultural misunderstandings will be addressed quickly and honestly. You have my personal assurance, Lily said. After Chairman Wang left, Alexander and Lily sat in his office, both emotionally drained from the intensity of the afternoon. We nearly lost everything, Alexander said. But we didn't. And now we have an even stronger foundation for the partnership. Because you handled Chairman Wang perfectly. Your credibility with him saved the deal. Our credibility saved the deal. He trusts us as a team. Alexander looked at her with an expression that made her heart skip. Lily, I need you to know something. What? Today, when everything was falling apart, you could have distanced yourself from me and the company. You could have protected your own reputation by staying neutral. Instead, you put your credibility on the line to support me. Of course I did. We're partners. Yes, we are. In every way that matters. Alexander stood and walked around his desk to where she was sitting. I love you, Lily. Not just because you saved my deal today, but because of who you are. Because you're loyal and honest and brave enough to do the right thing even when it's risky. Lily stood to meet him, her heart full of emotions she was still learning to navigate. I love you too. And I trust you completely. When Alexander kissed her, it felt like a promise. A commitment not just to each other but to the partnership they were building together, one that could weather any storm as long as they faced it honestly and together. The security breach had been a test neither of them had expected, but they had passed it with flying colors. And in doing so, they had proven to themselves and each other that what they had built together was strong enough to survive anything. The months following the successful Chinese partnership deal should have been the happiest of Lily's life. Chen Innovations was thriving, her role as cultural liaison had expanded into a vice president position, and her relationship with Alexander had deepened into something that felt permanent and real. But success, Lily was learning, came with its own set of challenges. It started with small things. Conversations that stopped when she entered a room. Glances exchanged between colleagues when Alexander showed her particular attention during meetings. Comments that seemed innocent on the surface but carried undertones that made her skin crawl. You're so lucky, Monica from HR said one afternoon as they passed in the hallway. Landing a position like this with no MBA, no corporate experience. Some people have all the luck. Luck had nothing to do with it, Lily replied evenly, but the comment stuck with her for the rest of the day. The whispers grew louder after Alexander invited her to accompany him to a major industry conference in New York. It was a legitimate business trip, Several of their Chinese partners would be attending, and her presence would be valuable for maintaining those relationships. But Lily couldn't ignore the way people looked at them when they walked through the airport together, or the knowing smiles of other conference attendees when Alexander introduced her as his invaluable cultural liaison. "People think I'm sleeping my way to the top," Lily told Jennifer one evening as they shared drinks after work. It had become their weekly ritual, and Jennifer had become one of Lily's closest friends at the company. "People are idiots," Jennifer said bluntly. "Anyone who's actually worked with you knows that you've earned every bit of success you've achieved. But not everyone has worked with me. And the rumor mill doesn't care about facts. Is that what's been bothering you lately? You've seemed distant." Lily sighed, swirling the wine in her glass. "It's not just the rumors. It's everything. 6 months ago I was invisible. Now I'm dating the CEO, I have an office with a view, I'm traveling to conferences and dining with billionaires. Sometimes I feel like I'm living someone else's life." "Imposter syndrome is real," Jennifer said gently. "But you belong in that life, Lily. You've worked for it." "Have I? Or did I just get lucky that Alexander's phone rang at the right time? Do you really believe that? That everything you've accomplished is just luck?" Lily was quiet for a long moment. "I don't know what I believe anymore." The doubt that had been growing in the back of her mind came to a head the following week when she overheard a conversation in the company break room. She had gone to get coffee and was about to enter when she heard her name mentioned. "I'm just saying it's convenient timing," someone was saying. "She goes from cleaning toilets to VP in 6 months and she's dating the boss. You do the math. Maybe she's actually good at her job," another voice suggested. "Come on, Sarah. You've seen the way Chin looks at her. This isn't about her translation skills. I heard she doesn't even have a college degree. My cousin applied for that cultural liaison position when it was posted internally, and she has a master's in international relations from Georgetown. But somehow the cleaning lady gets the job." Lily felt like she had been punched in the stomach. She stood frozen outside the break room, unable to move forward or retreat. "That's enough," a familiar voice said firmly. It was Jennifer. "Lily Williams is one of the most qualified people in this company for her position. She speaks 3 languages fluently, she has years of professional translation experience, and she's single-handedly responsible for our most successful international partnerships. If you have a problem with her performance, take it up with HR. Otherwise, keep your jealous gossip to yourself." Lily heard chairs scraping and footsteps approaching the door. She quickly retreated to the nearest bathroom, locking herself in a stall and trying to calm her racing heart. Jennifer found her there 20 minutes later. "I know you heard that," she said gently. "Are you okay?" "No," Lily said honestly. "I'm not okay. Those people are idiots. They're just jealous because you've accomplished more in 6 months than they have in their entire careers. But what if they're right? What if the only reason Alexander hired me is because he was attracted to me? Do you really believe that about him?" Lily thought about Alexander's character, his integrity, the way he had handled the security breach during the Chinese negotiations. "No," she said quietly. "But maybe I don't want to see it because I'm in love with him." "Lily, listen to me. I've worked for Alexander for 3 years. I've seen him hire and fire dozens of people. He doesn't make personnel decisions based on personal feelings. He's too smart and too protective of his company for that. Then why are people so convinced that our relationship is the only reason for my success?" Jennifer was quiet for a moment. "Because it's easier for them to believe that than to admit that someone they overlooked has talents they don't possess." That evening, Lily found herself pulling away from Alexander in ways she hadn't even realized. When he suggested dinner, she begged off, claiming she had work to catch up on. When he stopped by her office for their usual morning coffee, she kept the conversation strictly professional. When he tried to hold her hand as they walked to a meeting, she found reasons to carry files that required both hands. Alexander noticed, of course. He was too observant and knew her too well to miss the subtle signs that she was withdrawing from him. "We need to talk," he said on Friday afternoon, closing her office door behind him and taking a seat across from her desk. "About what?" Lily asked, though she knew exactly what he wanted to discuss. "About whatever's been bothering you this week. About why you've been avoiding me." "I haven't been avoiding you. We've seen each other every day. Professionally, yes. But personally? Lily, you haven't let me touch you in a week. You barely look at me unless we're discussing business. What's going on?" Lily felt tears prick at her eyes. She had been dreading this conversation, but she also knew it was inevitable. People are talking, Alexander. People are always talking. That's what people do. They're saying that the only reason you hired me is because you wanted to sleep with me. They're saying that I'm unqualified for my position and that I'm using our relationship to advance my career. Alexander's jaw tightened. Who's saying that? It doesn't matter who. What matters is that it's what people believe. And do you believe it? The question hung in the air between them like a challenge. Lily looked into Alexander's eyes and saw hurt there, and disappointment, and something that looked like fear. I don't want to believe it, she said quietly. That's not what I asked. Lily took a shaky breath. Sometimes when I'm lying awake at night, I wonder if any of this is real. I wonder if you would have given me a chance if I hadn't been young and reasonably attractive. I wonder if I've actually earned my position or if I'm just living in a fantasy that's going to come crashing down eventually. Alexander was quiet for a long moment, and when he spoke, his voice was carefully controlled. Do you remember the first time we had lunch with the Beijing partners? Of course. Do you remember how they reacted when you explained the cultural significance of their contract language? How their entire demeanor changed when they realized you truly understood their perspective? Yes. That wasn't about your looks, Lily. That wasn't about our relationship. That was about your skills, your intelligence, your cultural knowledge. I could have brought any beautiful woman to that lunch and it wouldn't have made a difference. But I brought you and you transformed that meeting. But you were already attracted to me before that meeting. Yes, I was attracted to your intelligence, your kindness, your strength. I was attracted to the woman who answered my phone in the middle of the night because she thought someone might need help. I was attracted to someone who had been hiding extraordinary talents rather than using them for personal gain. Lily felt tears sliding down her cheeks. But what if people are right? What if our relationship compromises my credibility? What if it undermines everything we've built together? Alexander stood and walked around her desk, kneeling beside her chair so they were at eye level. Lily, look at me. She met his gaze reluctantly. I love you. Not because you're beautiful though you are. Not because you make my life easier though you do. I love you because you're brilliant and brave and kind. I love you because you make me want to be a better man. And I respect you too much to let anyone, including you, diminish what you've accomplished. But the rumors will always exist as long as we're together. The question is whether we're going to let other people's jealousy and small-mindedness destroy something real and valuable. Lily wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. I don't know how to handle this, Alexander. I've never been in a situation like this before. Neither have I. My ex-wife worked in a completely different industry. We never had to navigate professional relationships alongside personal ones. Maybe that's why her marriage worked better. Alexander's expression darkened. My marriage didn't work because we wanted different things from life. Lisa wanted a husband who would prioritize her social calendar over his career goals. You want a partner who respects your ambitions as much as his own. That's not a weakness, Lily. That's why we work. Do we work? Or are we just making each other's lives more complicated? Alexander took her hands in his. We work because we make each other stronger. We work because we trust each other. We work because what we have together is worth fighting for. But what if I can't handle the pressure? What if I'm not strong enough for this? You're the strongest person I know. You survived losing the person you loved most in the world. You built a new life from nothing. You trusted me enough to take a risk on something that seemed impossible. If you can do all that, you can handle a few jealous colleagues. Lily wanted to believe him. She wanted to trust that what they had together was strong enough to weather the storms of public opinion and office politics. But the doubt that had been planted in her mind was growing like a weed, choking out her confidence and making her question everything she thought she knew about herself and her relationship. I need some time to think, she said finally. Alexander's face fell, but he nodded. How much time? I don't know. A few days, maybe a week. And what happens during that time? Do we pretend we're just colleagues? Do we avoid each other completely? I think I need some space to figure out who I am when I'm not half of us. Alexander stood slowly, his expression carefully neutral. All right. If that's what you need. After he left, Lily sat in her office staring out at the city below, feeling more alone than she had since her grandmother died. She had thought that success would make her feel secure, that love would make her feel whole. Instead, she felt like she was standing on shifting sand, unsure of what was real and what was illusion. The weekend passed in a blur of second-guessing and sleepless nights. Lily found herself walking through Chinatown, seeking comfort in the familiar sights and sounds of her childhood. She stopped at the restaurant where she used to take her grandmother for dim sum, ordered tea for one, and tried to imagine what the wise woman would have advised. Fear is a liar, Li Mei, Her grandmother's voice seemed to whisper in her memory. It tells you that you are not worthy of the good things that come to you. But fear does not know your heart. Only you know your heart. By Monday morning, Lily had made a decision. But whether it was the right decision remained to be seen. Monday morning arrived gray and drizzling, matching Lily's mood as she sat in her office trying to draft her resignation letter. The words seemed to stick in her throat, each sentence feeling like a betrayal of everything she had worked for. But the weekend of soul-searching had led her to a painful conclusion. She needed to remove herself from the situation before it destroyed both her relationship with Alexander and her professional reputation. She had typed and deleted the same paragraph 5 times when Alexander appeared in her doorway, 2 cups of coffee in hand as always. The familiar gesture made her heart ache. "Good morning," he said quietly, his eyes searching her face for clues about her state of mind. "Good morning." Lily quickly minimized the document on her screen. "How was your weekend?" "Long." "Yours?" "The same." Alexander set 1 coffee cup on her desk and took his usual seat across from her. For a moment, they sat in uncomfortable silence, the easy intimacy they had built over months feeling strained and fragile. "Have you thought about what we discussed Friday?" Alexander asked finally. "I have." Lily took a deep breath, steeling herself for what she had to say. "Alexander, I think we made a mistake." His face went very still. "What kind of mistake?" "Mixing business with personal feelings. It's too complicated, too messy. People will always question my motives and your judgment as long as we're together. So your solution is to end our relationship?" "My solution is to remove myself from the equation entirely." Lily's voice was steadier than she felt. "I'm going to resign." Alexander's coffee cup hit his saucer with a sharp clink. "You're what?" "I've been thinking about it all weekend. If I leave Chin Innovations, then whatever happens between us personally won't affect the company or your reputation." "Lily, that's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard." "Is it?" "Alexander, you've built this company from nothing. You have hundreds of employees depending on you, partnerships worth millions of dollars. I won't be the reason any of that gets compromised." Alexander stood abruptly, beginning to pace the small space of her office. "You're not the reason anything would be compromised. You're the reason half our partnerships are successful. For now. But what happens when people start questioning every decision you make regarding international deals? What happens when clients start wondering if your cultural liaison is qualified or just sleeping with the boss? I don't care what people think. You should care. Your reputation is everything in business." Alexander stopped pacing and turned to face her directly. "My reputation is built on results, not gossip. And the results speak for themselves, Lily. Since you started working here, our international revenues have increased by 40%. Our client satisfaction scores in Asia are the highest they've ever been. That's not because of who you're sleeping with. That's because you're exceptional at your job." Lily felt tears threatening but forced them back. "It doesn't matter how good I am at my job if people believe I only got it because of our relationship. So prove them wrong." "How? By being perfect every day for the rest of my career? By never making a mistake that could be attributed to favoritism? I'm exhausted just thinking about it." Alexander's expression softened. "Lily, I know this is hard. I know the pressure is overwhelming. But running away isn't the answer. It's not running away. It's being realistic about the situation. No, it's giving up. It's letting other people's jealousy and small-mindedness determine your future." Lily stood as well, meeting his eyes across the small space between them. "Maybe some battles aren't worth fighting. This one is. We are. Are we? Alexander, be honest with me. If I wasn't involved with you personally, would you have offered me this position?" "That's an impossible question to answer because our personal relationship is part of how I got to know you." "Try to answer it anyway." Alexander was quiet for a long moment, considering. "If I had somehow discovered your skills and qualifications without the personal connection, yes, I would have offered you a position. But it might not have been this position, and it might not have happened as quickly. So our relationship did influence your decision. Our relationship influenced the timing and the specific role, but not the fundamental recognition of your talents." Lily sank back into her chair, feeling defeated. "Don't you see? That's exactly what people will say. That you fast-tracked me because you wanted to date me. And they'd be wrong. I fast-tracked you because I needed your skills immediately, and I was smart enough to recognize talent when I saw it. But we'll never be able to prove that." Alexander sat back down, leaning forward intently. "Lily, let me ask you something. Do you love me?" The question caught her off guard. "What does that have to do with anything? Do you love me?" You know I do. And do you believe that I love you? Yes. Then why are you so willing to throw that away because of what other people think? Lily felt tears finally spill over. Because I don't know if what we have is strong enough to survive this kind of scrutiny. Because I'm scared that eventually you'll start to wonder if they're right. Because I can't bear the thought of watching you lose respect for me. Alexander moved around the desk and pulled her into his arms. For a moment, she let herself lean into his warmth, memorizing the feeling of being held by him. I could never lose respect for you, he murmured into her hair. If anything, watching you handle this pressure with such grace has made me respect you more. But I'm not handling it with grace. I'm falling apart. You're human. You're dealing with a situation that would challenge anyone. Lily pulled back to look at him. Alexander, what if we're wrong about this? What if we're so caught up in our feelings that we can't see how this relationship is affecting our judgment? Then we deal with that when it happens. But I won't let fear of what might happen destroy what we have right now. And I won't let what we have right now destroy what you've built over the past 10 years. They stared at each other, both understanding that they had reached an impasse. Neither was willing to budge from their position, and the silence stretched between them like a chasm. Finally, Alexander spoke. If you're determined to do this, I can't stop you. But I want you to know that losing you would be the biggest mistake of my life. And staying might be the biggest mistake of mine. Alexander's face went very pale. Is that really what you believe? Lily closed her eyes, unable to bear the pain in his expression. I don't know what I believe anymore. I just know that I can't continue like this, always wondering if I deserve what I have, always questioning whether people see me as a professional or just as your girlfriend. So you're choosing to see yourself as neither. I'm choosing to find out who I am when I'm not defined by my relationship to you. Alexander stood slowly, his movements careful and controlled. When? What? When will you resign? I thought, 2 weeks' notice. No. Lily looked up at him in surprise. No. If you're determined to leave, then leave now. I won't spend 2 weeks watching you pull away from me and second-guess everything we've built together. Alexander, I still need to finish the Shanghai contract translation, and there's the video conference with Beijing next week. Jennifer can handle the scheduling, and we'll hire a temporary translator for the contract work. The finality in his voice hit Lily like a physical blow. You want me gone immediately? I want you to stay and fight for us. But if you won't do that, then yes, I want you gone before this gets any messier than it already is. Lily stared at him, seeing a hardness in his expression that she had never seen before. This was Alexander Chen, the CEO, not Alexander, the man who brought her coffee every morning and told her he loved her. Fine, she said quietly. I'll clean out my office this afternoon. Jennifer will have your final paycheck and severance package ready by the end of the day. You don't need to give me severance. I'm choosing to leave. I'm giving you severance because you've earned it, regardless of how this ends. They stood there for another moment, the weight of everything unsaid hanging between them. Lily wanted to tell him she was sorry, that she loved him, that this was the hardest thing she had ever done. But the words seemed inadequate for the magnitude of what they were destroying. I should go, she said finally. Alexander nodded, his jaw tight. I'll have Jennifer email you about any personal items you might have left in my office or the conference rooms. The formality of his words was like a knife to her heart. Okay. As she reached the door, Alexander's voice stopped her. Lily? She turned back hopefully. I hope you find what you're looking for. There was no anger in his voice, no bitterness. Only sadness and resignation, which somehow made it worse. Thank you, she whispered, and then she was gone. 3 hours later, Lily sat in her empty apartment surrounded by boxes containing her belongings from Chen Innovations. Her professional life had been packed up and removed as efficiently as her personal relationship had been ended. 6 months of growth, success, and love reduced to a few cardboard boxes and a severance check she didn't want to cash. Her phone buzzed with a text from Jennifer. I don't know what happened, but I know you're both miserable. Please don't let pride destroy something beautiful. Lily stared at the message for a long time before deleting it without responding. Jennifer meant well, but she didn't understand. This wasn't about pride. This was about protecting the man she loved from the damage her presence in his life might cause. As the sun set over San Francisco, Lily found herself wondering if she had just made the biggest mistake of her life. But it was too late now. The decision had been made, the words had been spoken, and there was no taking any of it back. She was on her own again, just as she had been after her grandmother died. The only difference was that this time she had chosen the loneliness herself. 2 weeks after walking out of Chen Innovations, Lily was working the night shift at a small translation service downtown, helping immigrants navigate government paperwork for a fraction of what she had been earning as a VP. The work was meaningful but not challenging, and the solitude gave her too much time to think about what she had given up. She had heard through Jennifer, who texted her despite Lily's lack of responses, that Alexander was throwing himself into work with a vengeance. He was staying at the office until midnight, taking meetings at all hours to accommodate Asian time zones, and had become distant and formal with the entire staff. "He's miserable," Jennifer's latest text read. "And so are you, from what I can tell. This is stupid, Lily. You belong together." Lily deleted the message without reading the rest, just as she had deleted the dozen voicemails from Alexander that had come in the first week. She couldn't bear to hear his voice, couldn't risk having her resolve weakened by whatever he might say. But as she sat in the small, cramped office of the translation service at 2 a.m., helping an elderly Chinese woman understand her Medicare paperwork, Lily couldn't shake the feeling that she was hiding again. She had traded the visibility and challenges of her role at Chin Innovations for the safety of anonymity, and the familiar ache of wasted potential was starting to gnaw at her. "You are very good at this," the elderly woman said in Mandarin as Lily finished explaining the insurance forms. "You remind me of my granddaughter. She is smart like you, but she is afraid to use her gifts." "Why is she afraid?" Lily asked, though she suspected she already knew the answer. "She thinks she is not good enough for the big opportunities. She thinks people will say she does not deserve success." The woman's weathered hands folded the papers carefully. "But I tell her, if you do not believe you deserve good things, who will believe it for you?" The words hit Lily like a physical blow. She finished helping the woman and sat alone in the empty office, staring at her reflection in the dark window. When had she become someone who ran from challenges instead of facing them? When had she started believing that she didn't deserve the life she had built? Her phone buzzed with another text from Jennifer. "Emergency at work. Alexander collapsed during a meeting. He's at UCSF Medical Center." Lily's blood turned to ice. Without thinking, she grabbed her keys and ran. The hospital was a maze of sterile corridors and fluorescent lights that reminded her painfully of those late nights cleaning office buildings. She found Jennifer in the waiting area, pacing and looking frantic. "What happened?" Lily demanded. "Exhaustion and dehydration," Jennifer said, relief flooding her face at seeing Lily. "The doctor says he's been running on maybe 3 hours of sleep a night for 2 weeks. His assistant found him passed out in his office this afternoon. Is he okay?" "He will be, but Lily, he's been destroying himself since you left. He won't admit it, but I think losing you broke something in him." Lily sank into one of the uncomfortable plastic chairs. "Can I see him?" "He's sleeping now, but visiting hours start at 8 a.m. Lily spent the night in that waiting room, dozing fitfully in the chair and waking every few minutes to check the time. At exactly 8 a.m., she made her way to Alexander's room, her heart pounding with nerves and fear and something that felt dangerously like hope. He was awake, sitting up in bed and looking pale but alert. When he saw her in the doorway, his expression cycled through surprise, pain, and something else she couldn't quite identify. "Hi," she said quietly. "Hi." His voice was hoarse. "You didn't have to come." "Yes, I did." Lily stepped into the room, closing the door behind her. "Jennifer said you collapsed." "Just tired. Doctor says I need to eat more and sleep more." "Nothing serious." "Alexander, look at me." He met her eyes reluctantly. "This is serious. You're in the hospital because you've been working yourself to death for 2 weeks. I've been working because that's what I do. Work doesn't stop just because." He trailed off. "Just because I left? Just because my personal life fell apart?" Lily felt tears sting her eyes. "I'm sorry. I never wanted you to hurt yourself because of my decision." "Your decision?" Alexander's voice gained strength, and she could see some of his usual fire returning. "Lily, you didn't just make a decision. You gave up. You let fear win. I was trying to protect you." "From what? From gossip? From people who are jealous of what we built together? From the damage that our relationship could do to your reputation and your company?" Alexander struggled to sit up straighter, and Lily instinctively moved to help him, her hand briefly touching his arm. The contact sent electricity through both of them. "Do you want to know what's actually damaged my reputation?" he asked. "Losing the best cultural liaison I've ever worked with because I couldn't convince her that she deserved the success she had earned. Do you want to know what's actually hurt my company? Operating without someone who understood our international partnerships better than anyone else on my staff." "Alexander, I'm not finished. Do you want to know what's actually been destroying me?" Waking up every morning knowing that the woman I love is somewhere in this city believing that she's not good enough, not smart enough, not worthy enough to have the life she wants. Lily felt tears flowing freely now. I was scared. Of what? Of everything. Of failing, of succeeding, of people discovering that I'm just a cleaning lady who got lucky. You were never just a cleaning lady. You were a brilliant woman who was hiding because she was afraid of being seen. But what if they're right? What if I only got where I was because you were attracted to me? Alexander was quiet for a long moment, studying her face. Lily, do you remember the night you answered my phone? Of course. Do you remember what you were thinking when you heard it ringing? I thought someone might need help. Exactly. You didn't answer because you wanted something from me. You didn't answer because you were trying to impress anyone. You answered because it was the right thing to do, and because you have a natural instinct to help people. What's your point? My point is that everything that happened after that night happened because of who you are as a person. Your skills, your intelligence, your integrity, your kindness. Yes, I was attracted to you, but I fell in love with you because of your character. But people will always question. Let them question. Let them gossip. Let them wonder. The people whose opinions actually matter know the truth. Lily wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. What truth? That you're extraordinary. That you transformed our international business in ways I couldn't have imagined. That you're one of the most naturally gifted cultural interpreters I've ever encountered. How can you be so sure? Because I've spent 2 weeks trying to replace you and no one comes close. I've interviewed candidates with advanced degrees from prestigious universities, people with years of experience at major corporations. None of them have your intuitive understanding of how to build bridges between cultures. Alexander reached for her hand, and this time she didn't pull away. Lily, I need to tell you something. The Shanghai partnership we've been working on? It's been falling apart since you left. Not because of any business issues, but because Chairman Wang specifically asked where you were. When I told him you were no longer with the company, he said he wasn't comfortable proceeding without the cultural liaison he trusted. Lily's eyes widened. He said that. He said that your presence gave him confidence that communications would be handled with proper cultural sensitivity. He said that in 30 years of international business, he had rarely encountered someone who understood both American and Chinese perspectives so thoroughly. Alexander, I had no idea. Because you were so busy worrying about whether you deserved your success that you couldn't see how successful you actually were. They sat in silence for a moment, Lily trying to process everything he had said. I've been working at a small translation service, she said finally. Helping immigrants with paperwork. That's important work. It is. But it's not challenging. And I find myself missing the complexity of what we were building together. We could build it again. Lily looked up at him. Could we? After everything that's happened? Lily, I love you. Not because you work for me, not because of what you can do for my company, but because of who you are. I love your intelligence and your kindness and your strength. I love the way you see the world and the way you help other people see it too. I love you too, Lily whispered. But I'm still scared. Of what? Of not being enough. Of disappointing you. Of people thinking I don't deserve the life I want. Alexander lifted their joined hands and kissed her knuckles gently. What if I told you that the only person whose opinion matters about whether you deserve something is you? I'd say that's easier said than believed. Then let me help you believe it. Come back to me, Lily. Come back to us. Not because I need you professionally, though I do. Not because the company needs you, though it does. Come back because you deserve to use your gifts, to be challenged, to build something meaningful. And if people talk? Let them talk. Let them wonder how a cleaning lady became a VP in 6 months. Let them try to figure out if it was skill or luck or favoritism. We'll know the truth and we'll prove it every day through our work. Lily felt something shift inside her, like a door opening that she had kept locked for too long. Alexander, if I come back, things have to be different. How? I need to know that you respect my professional judgment even when it conflicts with your personal feelings for me. I need to know that I can disagree with you in meetings without you thinking I'm being difficult. Done. And I need to stop hiding from who I am. I need to stop apologizing for my success and start owning it. I've been waiting for you to do that since the day I met you. And I need us to be transparent about our relationship. No more pretending it doesn't exist, no more trying to separate the personal from the professional. If we're going to do this, we do it honestly. Alexander smiled, and it was like seeing the sun come out after a storm. I wouldn't have it any other way. There's one more thing. What? I need you to promise me that you'll take care of yourself. No more working until you collapse. No more forgetting to eat or sleep. If we're going to be partners in business and in life, I need to know that you value yourself as much as you value the work. I promise. Lily took a deep breath. Then yes, I'll come back. But not just to the job and not just because you asked me to. I'm coming back because I deserve to be there, and because what we built together is worth fighting for. When Alexander kissed her, it felt like coming home and starting an adventure at the same time. It felt like the end of hiding and the beginning of truly living. 3 months later, Lily stood in front of a conference room full of international business executives, presenting the cultural integration strategy that she and Alexander had developed for their expanding Asian partnerships. She wore a tailored suit that made her feel powerful and professional, and when she spoke, her voice carried the confidence of someone who knew exactly what she was worth. In the back of the room, Alexander watched with obvious pride as she fielded questions from some of the most successful businesspeople in the world. When the presentation ended and the executives filed out, talking excitedly about implementation timelines, he approached her with a smile that made her heart skip. "Brilliant as always," he said, taking her hand. "We make a good team. The best." As they walked out of the conference room together, Lily caught sight of their reflection in the glass walls. She saw a confident woman and a successful man who had built something extraordinary together through talent, hard work, and the courage to believe that they deserved the love they had found. The whispers had never completely stopped, but they had faded into background noise that no longer had the power to shake her foundation. Because Lily had finally learned the most important lesson of all. The only person who needed to believe she deserved her success was herself. And she absolutely, completely, unequivocally did. 6 months after that, when Alexander proposed to her during a business dinner with their Beijing partners, switching seamlessly from English to Mandarin to make sure everyone could understand his declaration of love, Lily said yes without a moment's hesitation. After all, she had learned that the best opportunities in life came from taking chances, not from playing it safe. And taking a chance on Alexander Chen had turned out to be the best decision she had ever made.